Hello. We're back. We're back with some more gymnastics. Hello, amigos. Blitz is eating a bone right there. He's always here. Actually, he was at the vet last week just for his normal checkups. That's why he wasn't here last week. But he's always tuning in. Right, buddy? Okay. Today, guys, we're going over bar muscle-ups. Now, while we wait for a few more homigos to jump on, let's go over just some housekeeping things. If you guys are following me on Instagram, which I believe most of you guys are because that's where a lot of our stuff is, I kind of hinted that we were doing something at the end of August. I'm sure a few people pieced that together already. Exciting things for Big Becca. This is the first time ever, and I am so scared. This is the first time ever. We're going to drive out to College Station, which is about 2.5, maybe 3 hours, don't ask me about directions or anything, away from us to set up our first Big Becca and Bolt booth at the BCS Classic. Couple of things that kind of made us jump into that big adventure is that's something I've been wanting to do, is be able to take Big Becca and Blitz. I don't know if we're going to be able to take Blitz yet. That was supposed to be part of the deal, but it depends on the event center. And Bolt and everything we do into a vendor situation at a competition. So that's the big announcement that I'm going to be hyping up. We got about a month to get all of our apparel, swag, new things ready to go because we will be setting up a tent at BCS Classic. I will be there, Matt will be there, and a lot of our bolters will be competing, so that was another factor that led us down there. And I'm scared. I'm so scared. I don't even know what's going to go on because usually I'm out on the competition floor, and this is going to be a whole nother angle of that. So I am super excited and going to see you guys if y'all are out at the BCS Classic here in Texas in College Station. We will be there with a booth, and we'll be running a Big Becca party over there. I have so much to do. That being said, how are you guys? We're going to do some bar muscle-ups today here in a second. I have my Facebook live video pulled up over here, and I want to see the comments because I've been having issues with seeing y'all's comments on these live videos, which is stupid because that's the whole reason for doing a live video. So if you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up. That always helps me big time. And start asking me questions about bar muscle-ups as we start running through these. And we're gonna get into it. Let me go grab my grips. So bar muscle-ups are such a fun skill to learn. Now, when we did butterfly pull-ups last week, I love that we did that first because they're the drills and strength accessory work and kind of pieces and parts that I give you guys for butterfly pull-ups is very, very similar to bar muscle-ups, being that they're very similar mechanics. We talked a lot about developing our lats and being able to push down on the bar. That is what we're going to talk about a lot when it comes to bar muscle-ups. So strength-wise, yes, you need a lot of lat strength. You need a lot of your pulling strength. So that leads me to requirements for getting yourself in the right spot or being able, if I look at an athlete and I think they are strong enough to get a bar muscle up, typically they'd have a set of 10 connected toes to bar, a set of 10 connected kipping toes to bar. That's a really big one. And then they have quite a few connected, at least 3, hopefully 5 kipping chest to bar pull-ups. And that's standard kipping chest to bar pull-ups. So if I was putting hey, show me that you can do 10 connected toes to bar and then 5 connected kipping chest to bars, I'd be yep, you're strong enough to be able to do a bar muscle up, and now all you need is the technique that comes with that. But that being said, this is one of those weird skills where if you have a lot of body awareness and coordination, it's such a technical skill that I've seen people that I don't think are strong enough to be able to get themselves on top of the bar have the technique down and be able to figure this one out. So honestly, this is a very fun skill to learn. I want everybody here to learn it right, to learn it correctly, so we don't get ugly chicken wings. We learn how this translates into or is much related to and translates to other gymnastics pieces. So bar muscle-ups, here we go. When we do bar muscle-ups, and I have a couple of plates set up right here that I'm going to put on the ground. I'll explain those later. It is so cool because the bar muscle-up is literally piece by piece by piece. I can talk you through piece by piece by piece while I'm doing the actual skill. So there's an element of patience to the skill and just knowing what the steps are. You can walk yourself through the steps as you're doing the skill. Chalk first because these grips are on the newer side. All right, first thing I'm going to do is a bar muscle-up, or a couple, so you guys can see that. Here we go. 1, 2, and that's good. And now, I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to say all the pieces and parts that we're going to go over as we're doing it. All right, so here we go. Hollow arch, toes, hips, and then the sit up and over. Here we go. Hollow arch, toes, hips, and then the sit up and over is very, very simple. Wow! That's all you guys gotta do. Now, I come from a gymnastics background. It wasn't very hard for me to get bar muscle-ups because we do lots of kips in gymnastics. But those two skills are a little bit different. A glide kip uses a lot of forwards momentum, like jumping into the bar. The glide part is where you throw all of your momentum forward, you push all of your momentum forward, and then you pull all of that body weight and momentum backwards to get on top of the bar. The bar muscle-up is a little bit different. We use a different sequence of hollows and arches to create tension, put your muscles on stretch, and be able to use those muscles, develop those muscles in a strength kind of way, because there is a lot of strength that is involved in a bar muscle-up, I think, over than a kip. It's a little bit harder in that sense, and that's why they put standards on you can't do glide kips when you're doing bar muscle-ups, and that's where your toes come above the bar, because it's using just like a lot of momentum and body weight over your muscles. Bar muscle-ups, let's learn how to use our muscles. The first thing we're going to do is work on jumping into a hollow body position. If you don't start jumping into a hollow body position, your whole sequence of events is going to be thrown off. Okay? This is the only skill you go over to your pull-up bar and you start back behind the bar. Because you do want a little bit of that momentum going forwards, kind of similar to a glide kip. We're just going to not use quite as much. You do want a little bit of forwards momentum going into the skill, to start the skill. So jump into hollow is step 1. If you're short like me and you got a pretty tall bar, you might need a stack of plates. Just be careful when you're hopping on and off of the bar that you're not going to land on them. And play around with what's high enough to be able to jump and get some solid momentum into the bar when you jump, or have enough height to be able to swing forward. And then make sure there is a point where a box or something is too high and you're going to have too much momentum going forward. So you're going to have to find a sweet spot depending on how tall you are, how high your bar is, all that good stuff. So I have a couple of plates right here and that'll be enough for me. We're going to jump into a hollow body position, and that's it. And then just hold it. Jump, hollow body, and hold it right there. That is always step 1 when we're learning bar muscle-ups, is start, bam, in that hollow body position. Hollow body is long and scooped, guys, long and scooped. My ribs are tucked in, my toes are in front. I see a lot of people think they're in a hollow body position just because they think their toes are in front, but sometimes their trunk looks a little bit arched and overextended. Watch a bad example. You'll see how my booty's sticking out, my chest is sticking out, and I look very broken right there. Good example. Ribs are tucked in, toes are in front, I look like a long scooped croissant moon. There was a pretty croissant moon yesterday when I was driving to the gym. Hollow body. Jump into hollow body. Because what comes after that? There's only one other place to go after that. The arch. After you jump into hollow, you sweep into arch. And I love that word sweep because that, I don't know, in my brain, it makes me think long and like graceful into that next step and not just be like, all over the place, like muscling it. Jump in a hollow, sweep in the arch. But timing wise, I'm going to give you guys a couple of tools. Fast forward, you guys, make sure you're feeling good on these bar muscle ups and not have to figure it out all on your own. That's why I'm here. Give you guys all the tips and tricks. Jump in a hollow, sweep in an arch. It looks like this. Hollow, arch. Hollow, arch. Okay. When I'm in that arch position, that is, oh my gosh, it's another gymnastics lesson from Becca. Long tension. That is how we put all of our muscles on stretch. That's how we use those muscles in a long, pretty gymnastics way. I'm not tensed up. I'm not rigid and flexing them that way. I'm being long, like a stretched, long rubber band. Maybe that's why my arms are so long on camera right here. Oh my gosh, I always joke about my long arms. They look so long right now. Long tension, stretching super long. That is how you are going to build power for this skill. Hollow, stretch in the arch, get those muscles and start using those muscles in a long, stretched out way, stretched rubber band. Now timing wise, this is the cheat code for these bar muscle ups. Timing wise, you hold that hollow body position until your toes cross the upright. And all of your bars should have uprights. Well, there are some that stick out from like walls and everything. But these posts right here are great timing tools for knowing when to switch into the arch or sweep into the arch. Watch it again. Let's go again. Jump in a hollow. My toes are going to pass this post before I move into my long arch. And when you go into that arch, it should feel like everything's working. Everything's working. You're putting your arms in that big long position, your torso stretched. And guys, look at my toes. We always talk about your toes and your legs being a telltale sign of if you're tight, if you're on tension right there. My toes are stretching to the ground. Boom. And then you can already see what's going to happen next. After that arch position, here comes all the big fancy stuff. This is what we're going to need to spend the most time on, whether you're developing technique or strength. What happens after that big arch? There's only one other place you can go after the arch comes back to the hollow body position. We go arch, hollow to arch to hollow, and that goes back and forth to create strong kipping gymnastics. There's no other positions that go along with that, okay? So you're going to go into arch, and then we're going to start pressing back down into a hollow body position. Y'all remember butterfly pull-ups? Lean back, lean back, lean back. Lats are going to get engaged. Toes are going to be in front of the bar, holding that hollow body position. That is step number 3. Here we go. Hollow. Arch, toes come up in front. Let's do it again. Hollow, arch, toes come up in front. Now, I love that sequence because that is just basic kipping gymnastics on a much bigger level for these bigger skills. Big. For these big gymnastic skills. Okay? There are going to be some other pieces and parts that are going to come with that to make your bar muscle up more efficient, to get rid of chicken wings, but it's got to start there. Hollow, jump into hollow, sweep into arch, come back into that hollow, lat push down. That's a big thing that is going to help you develop your technique and build your strength. Okay, let's see it again. Hollow, arch, hollow lat push down. I promise you there's a lot, especially my ladies out there who tend to be a little bit weaker through their lats or just pulling in general. It's just Seems like a lot of my ladies just have to be a little bit more patient on developing that pulling strength and pushing strength, just upper body strength. But these lats, those are your big wings. We talked about it for butterfly pull-ups. Wings, they get you guys flying on butterfly pull-ups too. So if you can see in that hollow body lat push down, we got neighbors visiting. In that hollow body lat push down, that's where my body's going up. That's where we're going to be able to turn over for the bar muscle up, okay? Now the idea needs to be, I'm getting myself closer to the bar now. Closer to the bar. So I'm going to do that hollow arch hollow again, but I want you guys to notice, hi, you can just leave it right there. Thank you. I want you guys to notice the space between my hips and the bar. Between my hips and the bar. Because what we're going to need to do next is do some things to close that gap between my hips and the bar. Okay? So here's the same drill that I just did. Hollow, arch, hollow. So right now, there's a pretty big gap between my body and the bar. I need to get closer to the bar. Now, a couple things can do that. If you're pretty strong and can start pulling yourself towards the bar with your arms, that's great. I want you guys to have all of that strength. But then when we start talking efficiency with bar muscle ups, we got to start using what's called hip extension, which is going to make it easier for you to get closer to the bar. You're going to start using other muscle groups other than your arms to make the movement more efficient. So if you're a chicken winger, that thing, one, feel sorry for your shoulders. Don't do that. Feel sorry for your shoulders. Two, you got work to do from your lower body. You got to fix that hollow lat push down, but then we're going to start adding your hips into it. So let's start lessening the gap between my hips and the bar. Actually, pause for a second. Pause for a second. If you do that kipping swing, that hollow, arch, hollow, that bigger, over-exaggerated kipping swing, and have like a really high pulling chest to bar, and maybe I'll show you guys that next. A really high pulling chest to bar, you have a bar muscle up. If you can pull the bar below your rib cage doing your kipping swings, you got a bar muscle up. That's like bare minimum, is if you can get the bar, this is like a chest to bar pull up, we usually try to touch standard wise below your collarbone, and where I touch my butterfly pull ups is right across my pec line. Now if we get the bar going a little bit lower, you're going to have room to sit up and over the bar, and then you got your bar muscle up. So let me show you guys a really muscly bar muscle up that counts, but maybe isn't the most efficient version of the skill. So if I do that hollow arch hollow right here, you'll see a lot of people kind of just barely get their chest over the bar. Fantastic. That counts as a bar muscle up. But that was a lot of hard work. Okay? So now, let's move on to the next step and start working on pressing our hips open. Hip extension. We talk about it a lot in Olympic weightlifting, but it also shows up in some gymnastics pieces like muscle ups and bar muscle ups. Oh, everybody loves this drill. So weird. It's so weird. We're going to do some dolphins. We're going to do some dolphins on the bar. We're going to take out the jump into the bar and start working on how to extend your hips while hanging from the bar. So here we go. I'm just going to hop up and hang from the bar and do some arch hollow kipping swings, okay? Here's some basic kipping swings. Now I know when my toes come in the front right here, my hips are technically closed, okay? The only other way they have to go from here is to open. This is a dolphin. Okay? This is if you're very new to bar muscle ups, is a little bit challenging to first get the hang of. But once it clicks, it clicks. It's there. It's not like you're limited by your strength. This is body awareness. When my toes come up, I see, oh, this angle in my hips, they're closed. The only other thing I can do now is open them. Okay, so in my bar muscle up program that you guys can get, it's one of my older programs. I still love it. I wouldn't change anything about it. There are some drills you can do laying on the floor that teach you how to squeeze your butt and press your hips open. That's how you get your hips open, is you squeeze your glutes. That's all hip extension. Booty, booty, booty right there. So there are some drills I will show you guys in that program if you get it, that are on the floor and slow it down. But today, we're just working up on the pull-up bar, and we're just working on toes come up, hips come up. In that order. It has to be that order, because when your toes come up, your hips are closed. When your hips come up, your toes go down. And you can see what's already going to start happening when I do that is my hips are going to go up. They're going to start closing the gap between my body and the bar, what we were working on before, okay? This is where things get complex, is while you're doing that, you have to keep a solid push down on the bar. But here's where most of you guys should start if you've never practiced hip extension like that. Start very small. No extra momentum. Start from a dead hang. Work on some kipping swings. And then when you see your toes pop up in the front, you think, squeeze your butt. Toes, hips. Toes, hips, and start very, very small. You don't need much swing to go along with that. It is building that connection between your brain and your body to be like, when I see my toes in front, now that's my cue to squeeze my butt, so my hips start coming up. When you get the hang of that, those dolphins, that's what I call those without the extra momentum, you just start from a dead hang, and you work on toes and hips. When you get the hang of dolphins, now we go back to the beginning. We go back to jump in a hollow, sweep in the arch. Toes come up in that hollow body position, and then what comes after that, guys? When I see my toes, my hips pop up, and now you're going to see a much smaller gap between my body and the bar. So here we go. We're going back to where we were. Hollow, arch, toes, hips, in that order. I'll say it as we're going through it. Hollow, arch, toes, hips. Oh my gosh, my hips almost touched the bar. And that's fantastic if you guys get to that point of your hips are touching the bar, because then you're already pretty much on top of the bar. The sit up and over is so lazy. Everybody's so focused on, you know what I don't like? You know what I don't like? And it's a good drill for certain situations. I don't like when I see people using jumping bar muscle-ups in workouts. They're not doing anything for you. The sit-up and over part of a bar muscle-up is more or less the fear factor side of a bar muscle-up. The only time I take those out is when I know an athlete is afraid to get on top of the bar. And I'm like, oh, you're not going to get your bar muscle up if you're being a chicken. So let's go set up a box under the bar and work on supporting yourself on top of the bar, realizing you're going to be fine. You'd have to do, guys, I've literally tried to fling myself over a bar one time to show someone that you'd have to do something so crazy, so out of control, and have so much power to fling yourself over the bar. It's just not going to happen. Okay? So doing a jumping bar muscle up, that's the drill I pull out if they're scared to get on top of the bar. If you're really scared to support yourself on top of the bar or don't have that feeling yet. Other than that, a jumping bar muscle up isn't where all the work is. The turnover is such a simple part of it's like the laziest part, the easiest part of the skill. Okay? All of the hard work happens on this hollow lat push down and combining a hip extension to it. Those two things come together, you got a beautiful, huge, big bar muscle up. So where we left off before we did dolphins was hollow arch, hollow lat push down. We saw a big gap in between my torso and the bar. What we did is dolphins to try to work on a hip extension, pressing my hips up to the bar. That combined with the hollow lat push down gets me to this. Hollow, arch, toes, hips. And when you got all your strength and your technique coming along, there's the bar muscle up. That was a bar muscle up, okay? Not standard-wise because I didn't finish on top of the bar, but I hardly had to sit up and over to get myself to a full support. After that, after I do hollow arch, toes, and hips, I simply, if you're doing everything right, it's not even going to have to be that fast. I sit my shoulders up and over the bar. I literally clothesline myself over the bar. There is not much needed to get to the support if you're doing all of those first steps. I sit my shoulders up and over. I toss my shoulders up and over the bar, and there's the bar muscle up. Here we go. The full thing. Hollow arch, toes, hips. And there's the bar muscle up. Now, I'll show you guys a little bit more of like a beginner. When I get my first bar muscle up, I'd want them to look somewhat like this. They're not going to be quite as straight arm as that because usually we're not as strong. But you might sit up and over with a little bit more bent arms, like so. And actually, I'm going to do one more to exaggerate my hips a little bit more on that one. Hollow arch, toes, hips. There's the bar muscle up. So every part of your focus, and especially on my program, you're going to start by learning the technique right off the beginning. Hollow, arch, hollow. Hollow, arch, hollow. That's technique. You're not going to need a lot of strength for that. Where you're going to get stuck is that hollow lat pushdown. And combining that hollow lat pushdown with understanding how to extend your hips closer to the bar. That's where you're going to spend the majority of your time. And then at the very end, when you're doing your sit up and over, if you did all of your strength work and all of your drill work to be able to do a hollow lat pushdown plus a hip extension, sit up and over on top of the bar is so easy. And that's all it is. When I was doing those last attempts, I want you guys to know another big side note is what your hands are doing. So we talked about this when it comes to all of your gymnastics, is where your hands are gripping or how your hands are gripping the bar, especially on a bar muscle up. They got to be over the bar like this. Whether your thumb is on top of the bar, whether your thumb is under the bar, you need to have your knuckles on top of the bar so you can push down. If you guys ever seen strict bar muscle ups, they're actually very hard. And you'll notice everybody that does that has their hands on top of the bar like this. They literally start from almost like a false grip on top of a regular pull-up bar so they can push down, because if you start with your hands under the bar, they have to shift all the way up and over. And there is a slight shift of your hands, but if you got too far to go, that's only going to slow you down and limit what you can do on your bar muscle up. So when you jump into your hollow body position, make sure, bam, your hands are on top of the bar like so. That's to help your hands already be there where they're supposed to go for a bar muscle up, which is on top of the bar. They're already on top of the bar. And it's going to help you engage your lats and be able to push down on the bar a lot easier. So that is a big tool that you can't miss right from the beginning. Also with that is, we talked about glide kips in the beginning. Glide kips, your toes go up above the bar. In a bar muscle up, they cannot break the plane of the bar. If you're doing all of these drills, you will be fine. But when you get fatigued, I usually have to tell my athletes, wait to let your toes rise a little bit more. They'll start pulling a lot from their arms and have their toes hanging way down here. When your toes are hanging way low, they're pulling you down. So when you get your start on a bar muscle up and you start your kipping swing right out the gates, just remember, if you're getting tired or you're getting some really close misses, like not being able to pull your chest, pull the bar low on your chest, think about getting your toes up. That's probably one of the cues I say the most in bar muscle up, is get your toes up. Higher I get my toes, the more I'm going to be able to get to that big lat push down and have the lower part of my chest or even my hips or my torso up to the bar. Let me think. This is for anyone wanting to get a bar muscle up. Anyone that has a chicken wing bar muscle up. Ooh, I don't like chicken wings. I don't like chicken wings. They hurt your shoulders. They hurt my shoulders watching you. Plus, my shoulder is a little bit jacked up right now. I've been doing so much pressing because of my foot. Ugh, my shoulders. Okay. I'm going to check the comments really quick. Once again, like, where are my comments? They always pop up like after I do my live video. It's got to be a setting. How are you guys? Hi, thank you for watching. I'm going to go check my iPad really quick. I'm hoping this helps you guys get bar muscle ups. If you guys go to my website, RebeccaFuselier.com, on my programs, you guys can find the bar muscle up program. I see a question on there from a while ago. Are your thumbs over or under? So we talked about this when we started our very first live session, which was toes to bar. And it's totally, quick summary of that, it's preference. I do thumb over from a gymnastics background. It's riskier. You have a higher chance of slipping off of the bar. But I find putting your thumb over the bar gives you more leverage through your lats. You just got to be smart on how your grip feels and make sure you're not gonna slip off. The thumb under is fine. You can still do the same things about like getting your hands over the bar. I find it's just a little bit harder, but you do have that safety mechanism of your thumb being under the bar, so you have less chance of slipping off. When it comes to a bar muscle up though, you need a ton of leverage to be able to push down on the bar. I always do my gymnastics thumb over. They teach you in your L1, and a lot of coaches will not be happy with thumb over just because it's a safety thing, but that's totally your call. It's preference. What I want to see is whether you're here or here, your knuckles are on top of the bar. So I know you can push down. Cool? Gosh, such little things like that make such a big difference. We're working on ring muscle ups yesterday, and where you put your hands on the rings is a big deal too. Such little things. Okay, cool. Here for any other questions. Let me check before I wrap this guy up. And that'll be bar muscle ups for you guys. Oh wait, we do have some more questions maybe. Hi guys. Okay. Cool. Thanks for tuning in for another live session. I hope you guys liked it. I hope it helps you guys get your bar muscle ups. Check out my programs on RebeccaFuselier.com/programs. Merch is up there too. We got a lot of exciting things to do. I'm always keeping myself busy around here. Blitz is always busy. Oh, the sunflowers, they're looking good in the front of the gym. I'll post an update today. Grande Sol was the first to bloom, and Fred was next. Okay, I love you guys. Bye.